Good to have you with us. It's been quite a couple of days here in the United Kingdom. Last night you called the dinner one of the highest honors of your life. You were clearly moved and impressed by the dinner, and you were sitting next to King Charles.
Yes.
And one of the things that he talked about was standing together for Ukraine. It was on a list of things that he was thanking the United States for. I'm curious what you spoke with him about, and did he speak to you about his feelings about the war in Ukraine at all?
He did. He spoke about many things. We were together for a long time, really 2 days.
Yeah.
I just left him. And he's a great person. I knew him as Prince Charles originally, and now he's King Charles. And the people love him in this country. And he went through, pretty tough stuff and medically, and he's doing great. But he's just a great person. I've known him for a long time, always said the same thing. He's a tremendous man who really stepped into a very tough position. Having to follow Queen Elizabeth is very, I guess she's got the all-time record, probably always will have, but she was in there for like 70 years or something, and to follow that is pretty tough. And she was really beloved.
Was there anything in particular that he wanted to communicate to you about his feelings about things?
I think that he was more interested in trade. He loves the environment, too. He likes to talk about the environment. But he was more interested in trade than anything else. And we're working a trade deal with the UK, which is going to be a good deal for both. And we're working it with the Prime Minister and his various representatives. And I think it's going to be, a great deal for both. We're doing tremendous trade deals for our country. We have unbelievable investment coming into the United States. And I guess because of the election, but also because of the tariffs. Without the tariffs, it would be a whole different story. We have more than $17 trillion coming in. As an example, Biden in his last year had $250 billion. So it's just a tiny fraction of that. And I don't think there's ever been anything like this, $17 trillion and more by the time we finish.
I want to talk to you more about that. But you spoke last night in your toast about the relationship between the United States and the UK, the fight against tyranny and fascism. We now have this situation where you've had 23 Russian drones go pretty deep into Polish territory.
Yeah.
Latvia, Romania also saying that they've had incursions. Swedish Air Force went up today into the Baltic Sea to chase away Russian fighter planes. What is Putin doing?
I'm disappointed in Putin. I'll tell you, I'm very disappointed in him. I settled 7 wars at least, but I settled 7 wars, all of which they said were not settlable. And I got them done. And the ones I'm not going to bore you going over a long list, but they were wars that were very tough to settle. Yeah. Even the Congo in Africa, Rwanda, going on for many, many years, almost 10 million people killed, settled, got them all done. And the one I thought was going to be easiest was going to be Russia, Ukraine, because of my relationship with President Putin. So I'm disappointed. If you listen to some people, the ones like in Poland were shot down and they fell into Polish territory, but they shouldn't have been that close anyway. They were drones. And
do you think it was a mistake? The Polish Prime Minister said it was not a mistake, that they were intentionally into Polish territory.
I can't comment on whether it was a mistake or not. They shouldn't have been there, let's face it. But supposedly they were disabled. Yeah. They disable drones today. That's the great attack on a drone is disabling it, and they fall all over the place. So let's hope it was that. I mean, I'd like to think the better, but I'm very disappointed in that. I thought that would be the easiest of all of them to get done, and it turns out to be the most difficult. The relationship between President Putin and President Zelenskyy is a horrible one. I mean, it's a lot to do with relationships. They truly dislike each other. I want to use that word rather than a stronger word, but they really do. They hate each other. And we'll see what happens. I think we're going to get a solution. I was unhappy with the European Union, or let's say NATO, when I saw that they were buying oil from Russia. I mean, I'm supposed to be coming in with the United States, and I took a tough stand on as you know, India, because they were buying oil. And ultimately, if oil prices go down, or if Russia's not selling oil, they have no choice but to settle. And when the European Union nations, or the NATO nations, because they're similar, very similar, when they're buying oil from Russia, that's not the greatest thing. That's not the deal. And I let it be known, and people were surprised to hear that, but they were doing it quietly and slyly. And you can't do that. If you're going to win, you're going to have to not buy oil from Russia. But we're going to see how it turns out. I hope it turns out well. It doesn't affect us because, we have a big ocean in between, but you're losing millions of people, and they're mostly soldiers, Russian soldiers, Ukrainian soldiers. Last week, almost 8,000 soldiers were killed in this ridiculous war. 8,000 people. And again, I want to see if I can get it done. It's tougher than I thought, but I've done a lot of tough things. It's so interesting. I settled wars that were absolutely, there was no chance of getting, we're going on for 31. One was 31 years, one was 34 years, one was 36 years. Going on for years and years, I got it done. This is one that should be settled. It should be settled.
Prime Minister Starmer has agreed to fly RAF jets over Poland to protect them. And back in August, you said we might help by air. You would consider helping in the air. What does that mean? Does that mean F-16s? Does it mean Patriot missile defense systems? How would you help?
Well, we are helping intelligence-wise, but when I said help by air, I'm talking about security after the war is settled. So after the war is settled, we would help secure the peace. And I think ultimately that'll happen. But, there's a question of whether or not President Putin wanted a piece of it or all of it. You know that. And it was never going to happen when I was president, never. And there was never even a thought of it. And it didn't happen. For 4 years, it didn't happen. There was never a threat. I think the bad performance put on by these people in Afghanistan had a lot to do with it because it showed such gross incompetence. But we're going to get it done one way or the other. We're going to get it done. Again, very disappointed when they say sanctions. I don't mind sanctions, but when I do sanctions and people are buying oil from a person they shouldn't be buying oil from,
I saw your post
it
the
makes
other
it
day.
much different.
You said you go first on China.
Yeah.
You said we're doing sanctions 50% against India because they're the biggest or second biggest buyer of Russian oil.
And we did that, and that's a big step.
So when you talked to Starmer, did you say, let's get everyone on board? If you guys do sanctions on India and China, then we'll do that too.
Well, if they did sanctions as an example, or tariffs, or whatever you want to call it, if they did that on China, I think the war would maybe end because China is by far the biggest purchaser of oil from Russia. And I think they have other powers over Russia too. I'm speaking with President Xi, as you know, on Friday, having to do with TikTok and also trade, and we're very close to deals on all of it. And my relationship with China is very good. We have a trade deal with them. We had a very good meeting the other day, and it sounds like they've approved TikTok, and TikTok is a tremendous amount of money for the United States, so that was nice. But we'll see how that all works. But if Europe did something with respect to China, I think China would probably maybe force an end to the war.
Is there any openness to that? Did Starmer say they would consider that?
Well, I would have done something too. But again, you can't have Europe buying oil from Russia and then have me getting upset with China because they're buying oil from Russia. I was a little surprised, and I wasn't
Hungary
supposed to
gets
find
75%. Slovakia also gets in their NATO countries.
Hungary,
they get a lot of
does.
oil from Russia. It's an interesting.
But it's not only those two countries, and those two countries you sort of understand because they actually do have a pretty close relationship, if you look. But it's other countries too, and you just can't do that. The United States has been a sucker long enough in the world in terms of trade. Now we're doing unbelievably well, and we're making more money than we've ever made. And it's going to continue as long as we have the beautiful tariffs. I always said my favorite word. I made it my fourth favorite word, as you know, because love, religion, wife, family, etc.
And then tariffs.
I got hit by the press. So I said it's my favorite. Well, what about religion? What about family? And so anyway, so I make it my fourth favorite word.
You said in the news conference that you're just close to a deal with the UK. That was the first deal that was made, at least the framework, but it's still not finalized. A lot of people wondering when you're going to see those finalized.
We made the deal with UK, and they'd like to make adjustments to it.
On steel.
Yeah. We made a deal with UK. It's a done deal, complete. In fact, I signed it, as you remember. It was signed in the Oval Office.
Yeah.
But they would like to see if they could make a little bit better.
Were you open to that?
I like them. We're making a lot of money.
So they're at 25% right now. You're going to go lower than that for them?
They're actually at 50% for steel and aluminum. And I want to see them. They're having a lot of difficulty.
Yeah.
You know that, right?
I want to ask you
and
about
I know
that.
you're of Scottish heritage, at least partially. So
I am.
Congratulations.
Yep, MacCallum.
It's a good heritage.
Highlanders, thank you very much.
It's a good heritage.
Starmer's under a lot of pressure, which you just mentioned. Immigration, very similar issues to what we're seeing at home. Immigration,
well, we've stopped it.
crime, all of it.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So do you think his government will survive, having spent a few days here and gotten a close look at what's going on?
I just think he's a really fine person, him and his wife. And, you get to know people. I think he's a very fine guy. He's more liberal than me. I think he should take a very strong stand on the immigration. It's really hurting him badly. I think he has to open up the North Sea. They have some of the best oil in the world, and they have a lot of it. And they made it impossible for people to drill, and I think that's what causes their energy price. They have a big energy problem here with the pricing, whereas our pricing is way down. We're going to be close to $2 a gallon for the cars very soon.
That would be good.
We were up at $4 and $5, and when you bring energy down, you bring inflation. Look, I inherited the worst inflation ever. As I just said at the news conference, they say it's 48 years, and I'll accept that, but I think it's ever. And we now have very low inflation. We have great production. And when these factories that are being built all over the country start opening up, we're going to have numbers that like nobody's ever seen before,
When do you think that people are going to feel that? Because we do see polling that doesn't poll well in the economy. The recent Fox polling said 52% say the economy is worse under this administration. You've got unemployment at the highest rate in 4 years. Groceries made a big jump in the last term. So how is that? You're looking forward with these plans that you just talked about. When will people feel that, Mr.
Well,
Trump?
when the factories start opening. I mean, right now we're building them. And, Fox polling, I have to tell you, I've told you before, it's the worst polling I've ever had. It's always, during the election, they had me winning by a little bit, not by a massive amount. And Fox polling, I've told Rupert Murdoch, go get yourself a new pollster because he stinks. And this is for years now. But I will say that we have all of these things are being built. Car companies are moving back. We lost 50%, 54% we were the automobile capital of the world. And all of a sudden it got robbed by China, Japan, Germany, all these countries. Those companies, they're all coming back now to the United States. They're building car companies and factories all over. They're coming back from Mexico and Canada. We lost a lot to Mexico. We lost a lot to Canada. They're all coming back because of the tariffs. Without the tariffs, a different story, but they're coming back because of the tariffs. And you're going to see that kick in probably in a year or so.
Mm-hmm. So,
but we're doing well anyway. Look, we have right now, when you look at our numbers, the investment that's being made in our country is, again, Biden's at $250 billion, and we're at $17 trillion.
Yeah,
that's
a big number.
No, nobody's ever heard of a number like that. There's never been a number like that.
So, with regard to people's feeling about the economy and the tariffs, and some polls show that people are concerned about the tariffs as well.
That's only because they don't understand the word tariff. I mean, look, again, we have all this money, trillions of dollars pouring into our country only because of the tariffs. I mean, I'd like to say because of November 5th, the election, but it's really because of the tariffs. And how do people avoid the tariffs? They build in this country. No different than what China did to us for years. No different than what Europe did to us for years. Europe was as bad as China. No different than what other people did to us. But we have the advantage. We actually have a big advantage on tariffs. The advantage is they want to be here. They have to be here. Right. They don't have to be in other countries. And that's why we're doing, these are numbers that nobody's ever seen before. So it's a very, very important thing. And the only people that are against tariffs are people that are in favor of other countries. For instance, we have a lawsuit. Well, it's financed and sponsored by people from other countries because we're doing well against countries that were ripping us off. Martha, we were ripped off for years by other countries, including China. And, last term, I had a tremendously successful term last term. But this is much better. We're doing much better. If you look at regulations, I cut regulations more than anybody else. We got the biggest tax cuts we've ever gotten. I've taken those tax cuts and expanded them, extended them and expanded them. And the numbers that we're seeing are the best, I think, that we've ever seen.
So you talk about the hundreds of billions of dollars that have come in because of the tariffs. Would you consider where's that money going to go? Would you consider giving it back to taxpayers while they wait for some of the things that you just talked about to kick in? Is that an option?
Politically, that's a nice thing to do, but you can do that and you can also pay down debt because we're talking about very big numbers.
So which do you like better?
Both, maybe. I mean, I could see both. I could giving something back because, look, these people have been forced to suffer for years by being ripped off by other countries, including China, and frankly, including the European Union. The European Union was as bad as China. Now they're treating us very nicely. Mm-hmm. You know, I signed a deal with the European Union. They have to pay us $950 billion. They have to buy $750 billion in our energy. They have to pay $200 billion for something else. I mean, nobody's ever seen Japan. They're going to pay us $550 billion in order to reduce the tariffs, just to reduce them down to 15%. Well, to get them down from 30 to 15, but the 30 was just set by me. We get it down to 15. They used to pay nothing. They'd send millions of cars into the United States, and they'd pay nothing. You know what we paid? You know why we paid nothing? Because they wouldn't take our cars. We didn't have one car sold in Japan for 5 years. They didn't take in our cars, and yet we took millions of their cars. And they're a friend of mine. Look, they're a country we get along with. Right. I got especially Abe, who's killed, unfortunately, who was assassinated, Prime Minister Abe. He was like a great friend of mine. And he actually said to me, I said, look, we're going to have to talk fast. We have to, Shinzo, we have to talk. He said, I know.
It seems like that's the response from a lot of leaders. They know that the gig is up when it comes to the relationship.
You know where they really know, though, is on favored nation drugs.
Yeah.
Because for years, we've been paying sometimes for a pill $100 and they're paying $10. And I say, what's this all about? And now the drug companies agree that I'm right. And the countries, if they don't agree, I'll use tariffs to get them to agree. You understand?
Yeah.
And we're going to be reducing drug costs over the next year and a half by not 50 or 60%, by 1,000%. Because if you think a $10 pill going, so it'll be raised up from 10 to 20 because it's the world versus us. So the world is a bigger place. So it'll go from 10 to 20. It won't go from 10 to 50 or 60 for them, which is bearable, and it'll go from 10 to 20 for us. So you're talking about a monumental change in healthcare. That's going to affect Medicare, Medicaid, even Social Security. It's going to affect everything.
Help,
that will be one of the biggest things you'll ever see done, because we've been paying for the healthcare of every nation in the world so stupidly.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.